What way is the hair? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Healthy Relationships Workshop. It's great to have you all here this morning. My name is Sinead Colopy, and I am the Clare CIPSI Coordinator, and CIPSI is the Children and Young People Services Committee. Also in our workshop this morning, we have Sandra Sheehan and Jess Angland. So I'd like to welcome Sandra and Jess. Sandra and Jess were commissioned as part of this project to do quite an extensive piece of research into healthy relationships, particularly pertaining to young people in the care system. So all the work that Sandra and Jess did informed the programme that you're going to be delivering to young people that you're working with. So Sandra and Jess know the content of each module very, very well. So they are going to go through the content of all the modules this morning with you. Just so that in advance of you delivering the program to the young person, that you have a very good sense of what the content is and other sort of triggering issues or other sort of stop and think, pause moments for practitioners that would be very useful for yourselves. As well, I just want to give a little bit, as we're starting off, a little bit of context, a little bit of background to how we got to this program. The Children and Young People Services Committee in Limerick and in Clare, we came together and we partnered up with Healthy Ireland. So this program was initially Healthy Ireland funded, and that's how we commissioned Jess and Sandra. There was a working group that was put together to basically an advisory group around healthy relationships and young people in care. And that working group comprised of TUSLA staff, Clare Care staff, Aftercare staff, and also EPIC, and also quite a considerable amount of practitioners from the residential services, both TUSLA and private residential. They all came together as a working group to oversee the content, the design, the structure, and what we wanted the program to look like. Why did we want to do this program in the first place? I guess we had to look at the evidence of what was out there and why we would put significant amount of funding into this particular piece of work for young people in care. It all came really from the Clare CIPSI, where information was coming to us from our domestic violence partners. And these would be the refuges in Clare and Limerick. And they have been integral to this piece of work. That would be Clare Haven and Adapt Services. And the fact that they were coming across women who were accessing their services for support because they were in unsafe and violent relationships. And when they were doing their care histories or when they were doing their background piece of work, they were seeing considerable amount of women who had come from a care experience as children, as under 18s. So what we were starting to see was a trend and a pattern emerging, was that there was proportionately higher number of young girls and women from a care background who were then going on to form unhealthy, unsafe relationships as adults, who then may need it as adults themselves to access then the domestic violence support services as adults, and sometimes with children then when they went on and they had their own children. So it was really this cycle that we could see perpetuating of children with fragmented attachment, with a history of unhealthy relationships in childhood, because of maybe broken parenting and disjointed care experiences. Then once came to adulthood, there was just no formation of a background or a foundation there as to what a healthy relationship looked like, because they may not have seen that growing up as children. We felt very strongly in the CIPSI that we wanted to do something that was an early intervention piece of work, that was a preventative piece of work with children whilst they were in the care system, to help them identify what a healthy, safe relationship was. It's very trauma focused. So we know that a lot of children coming into the system would be coming from a trauma background. So we knew that we had to look at it through that lens. And we really wanted to design an online interactive program that was accessible for practitioners and young people to work together so that they could start to unpick all the different complex facets that make up a healthy relationship, so that hopefully once they reach adulthood, that they would have had done some piece of work whilst in care or in aftercare, because this program is designed for 12 to 21-year-olds. So it really is a personal program that is worked with for the young person and the practitioner together around identifying elements and aspects that make up healthy, safe relationships. That it was the intention. We then received additional monies from our funder in What Works to do an evaluation of the program. So we are piloting it in the Midwest currently with a number of practitioners from TUSLA, from aftercare services, children and care teams, residential care workers across the region are going to be piloting this 6-module program. It's an online program, but it can be done remotely, kind of via like a Zoom system, where the young person and the practitioner can log in and they can work on each module individually together, or you can do it face-to-face on the screen. So it has been a sort of a 2-year process for us to get here. And as we say, it is a pilot and it is going to be evaluated. And then the recommendations then as to whether or not it's to be rolled out nationally will come from the evaluation. So that is just to give you a little bit of background context as to how we got to where we are today. Which I think is important that people know that this is very evidence-based. It's very based and grounded on quite extensive research, national and international best practice. And that is what really, and we've had young people inform the process as well and be very informed with regards to the consultation process and the design elements of the program as well. So the young person's voice was integral. So with regards to the rest of the morning, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background and history to the program. And now I'm very happy to hand over to our colleagues Sandra and Jess, who are going to run through the content. And it's very extensive. It's, you know, each module is very, very in-depth. So we're not going to be able to get into the intricacies that is in every single module, but we're just going to give you sort of the high-level flavor points of what you will see as you're going through the program yourself with your young person. So we hope that this video is very informative and that you can go over and back while you're delivering the program with the young person, just to refresh your memory if there's anything that you need. And there are facilitators guides going out to all the people implementing as well. So thank you very much for your attention. And now I will hand over to Jess Angland.
Okay, thanks, Sinead. So basically what I just wanted to go through very quickly was just maybe some of the findings, I suppose, of our research, because we did quite a bit of research in terms of informing the program. So hopefully I'll be able to share my screen. And if I can't, well, so just a few slides I have here just might help people in terms of the program and the background behind it. So 2 seconds now. So I suppose basically you mentioned that we did consult with care leavers, and that was very important. So we interviewed care leavers between July and November 2020, which seems like a long time ago now. And those care leavers were between 18 to 26-year-olds, and we had one participant in the mid-40s. So just to give you some of the background, 6 of the participants were in 3rd level or had been in 3rd level studying a variety of programs in social care, IT, psychology, engineering, and some with masters and PhD and postgraduate level. 2 of the young people were attending youth reach centres in Limerick and Clare. And the other young people were a mix of retail workers, beauticians, trainers. Even when we were doing those consultations, 4 of the young women admitted to us that they had been in abusive relationships. And 1 of the young women admitted that she had been in a women's refuge in Clare actually for quite some time. Another young woman admitted to growing up in an abusive household and had also herself been in an abusive relationship. So it was very evident in the consultations with the young people that domestic violence and abusive relationships were common. We also did some consultations with agency staff. And again, what some of the issues that came out of those interviews were, again, the issue of repeated relationship patterns, low self-esteem of the young people, the use of porn, sexual abuse in relationships, sexual identity, the stigma of being in care, their identity outside of the care system, issues like what was a healthy, unhealthy relationship, kind of confusion around consent, sex and intimacy, the issue of early pregnancy. A lot of young people maybe having, I suppose, babies early, trying to get what they didn't have, the issue of staying safe, the issue of early relationship experiences and how they impacted on future relationship. And another issue which came up quite a bit was with the young people and the agency was the issue of shame. And as Sinead said, unresolved early trauma and how it affected their relationships in the future. When we talked to the young people about the people who should deliver the program, they said, well, they need to be very self-aware. They need to be able to be very open about sex, and they might have different values. They might think of things differently than we do. They need to be aware of their own triggers when delivering the program. Connection would be very important. And you mentioned it, Sinead, that you're the person who's working with the young people, and it would be important to have a relationship with the young person when you're delivering this. The limit of your role, what you can and can't keep confidential, that was the agency staff. I suppose important to screen the young people before they do the course and see is the timing right. Some of the agency staff mentioned that some young people might have PTSD, sensory issues. For example, how open are they to the program? Some of the agency staff also said it could be quite challenging and that the young people might might push the boundaries. And young people, I thought this was very poignant in care, have a lot of people telling them what to do. So you have to be very open in terms of delivery of the program, and supervision would also be important for the facilitators. The care leaver said, what we want, I suppose, is not to be judged for being in care. Sometimes you feel you're in trouble because you're in care, and there are lots of reasons that you're in care. Consent would be really good, and to learn how to build positive relationships. It would be good if someone told you are not obliged to do anything and that you're not responsible for others, even your parents. Trust, relationships, building trust. Social workers told me I needed to trust them. And when I told my foster parents something, they went off and told the social workers, and I was always getting mixed messages about trust. Breakdown in relationships, endings in relationships. So that was very evident that they didn't know how to end in a relationship if it wasn't working for them. Tools to help end relationship, how to end a relationship. I might want to end it, but I get stuck in it. And sometimes you can be too caring and don't walk away. I didn't know anything about services, where I could go for help. I was not sure what a good relationship was. And then I remember this young person saying something to build you up, to say you have survived this and it was not your fault. So I suppose, again, it's a bit about you have to be very aware of what you're saying. Somebody can be very easily triggered. It's not right to be judging us or judging what we do. So watch your language. Again, coming back to something that needs to build us up, and things to consider, I suppose, I put this in really about your role and what you can and can't handle, I suppose, or what you can keep. And I've put in no judgment, no judgment, no judgment quite a number of times, because that came up very strongly from the young people. As Sinead said, it was from a trauma legacy kind of lens we were looking at as well when we were talking to the young people. And I suppose just put this in, is that one size does not fit all. And whilst it is a program with 6 sessions, you will have to judge in terms of the young person and where they're at. What came up very strongly, and when it's covered in one of the sessions, I suppose, is boundaries, not knowing what boundaries are, accepting poor or unhealthy relationships and patterns repeating, self-reliance, not seeking help or care. So very often the young people will not come to you for help, not seek care, because they've used to being very self-reliant, not sure about their rights, the right to choose, the right to end a relationship. So again, that was something that came out quite strongly. Wanting to create something they didn't have, I suppose getting into relationships very early, maybe getting pregnant very early. Trust will be an issue for the young people, which you know yourself. A high tolerance of abuse among some young people, especially depending on what they've seen themselves. Protective behaviors, telling you only part of the story and somebody else another part of the story. And I know, like Sandra will talk about this, triggers during the program, and we'll be talking a fair bit about the triggers and what might trigger somebody when they're doing this program. So that's the background. I'll hand you over to Sandra. Oh.
Sorry, just trying to unmute myself there for a second. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go through the 6 sessions that you will be covering with the young person. So if you just bear with me for a moment. So basically, the program is split into 6 sessions, and it's the first 3 are, we'll say, introduction to the program. The second one is looking at healthy relationship. The third one, unhealthy relationship and relationship abuse. And then 4, 5, and 6 go into more depth, we'll say, around consent, boundaries, and emotions. So I suppose what's important to remember when you're looking at the first session is basically it goes down through what they'll be covering. So what will I learn? Then it goes into touch on a trigger and what triggers are. So we put it in the way as, what if these sessions upset me, for the young person, which is very important to remember throughout this program in particular, because a lot of what's covered, even we'll say if it feels fairly standard, like, looking at what a healthy relationship is and what your experience of this might be, like that can bring things up for young people and the young people you're working with. So it's important to bear that in mind at all times. So and it's also very important, I'd say, to go through each of the sessions yourself before you start with the young person. There's a lot in each of them, a lot of information. You don't have to cover all of it with everybody. Again, as Sinead and Jess had said, you can pick what's suitable for the young person you're working with. And there is a lot of learn more or read further, so that if there is a topic you're not sure of yourself, you can actually go on and do a little bit more research about it, so you feel more confident when you're dealing with the topic with the young person. So we'll say this just breaks down what a trigger might be, what should you do if you have content that upsets you or that reminds you of something from your past, and also to remind them that they can stop the course at any point, and only continue when they're ready. It's also important in this first session that it kind of covers the issue of confidentiality, and we'll say what you can keep, what you can't keep from somebody if they bring something up. So each of these goes down and it'll explain a little bit about it to the young person and for yourself. It's also important to note before they start that even though this program is designed specifically looking at the challenges for young people who have care experience, that growing up in care doesn't define the person that they are. Their life is what they make it, but we're looking at practical things that they may have experienced or they may have to overcome because of the experiences they've had until now. So what's good about the program is that there's a lot of variety throughout each session, how it looks at things. We'll say there's little video snippets, there's stop and think buttons, there's like little card games, and it's good to keep the variety, I suppose, around how the information is given. So that's kind of basically the content for session 1. Is there anything that anybody wants to add to that before I go on to session 2? We're all good. So you can see basically that's the sort of layout of each of the sessions. Second one is looking at what is a healthy relationship. This is the first session that the stop and think part comes into. You'll see that throughout each of the sessions. It's a really good opportunity for them to look at the content in relation to themselves, and to let it start to sink in and to talk more about it. So if you look at one here, so we'll say, for example, this one, take a moment to write down your thoughts on the following. So it sort of gives you the little headings of good conversation starters that you can have, to explore the topics more with the young person. Also, we'll say this session looks at what is a healthy relationship, which is very important. It's giving the basis for the rest of the program. It's also taking the opportunity again to look at the care experience, that the experience is unique to them. Obviously, everybody is different. And then it goes on to look at, we'll say, different ways that being in care can affect your relationship. So again, this is a nice way. We'll say images of young people. When you click on one, I don't look for help because I had to become self-reliant at an early age. I might look for help from those who can't really help me. So it's identifying some of the things that would have come up for us through the research, and also from talking to young people with the common things that how the care experience could impact on relationships. So that's quite an interesting way for them to look through it. In session 3, you're going on to look at what is an unhealthy relationship. So it's starting to kind of delve into, we'll say, more around relationship abuse, what's healthy versus unhealthy. Quite a lot in this session, as you can see. Again, as we said, not all of each of the sessions may be relevant to the young person that you're working with. Again, a lot of it would be possibly dependent on their age and what their experience is so far. What you might do with a 12-year-old would be very different to what you would be doing with somebody who's 18, 19 or 20. So again, looking at there's, we'll say, a little video that goes through. These are 2 characters that pop up throughout the sessions, and they talk through what an unhealthy relationship looks like. And sorry, you'll also have, we'll say, little stories that would explain, again, maybe it's not just all, we'll say, romantic relationships. We'd also look at, we'll say, relationships with friends, relationships with your family. So Again, it's important for them to look at all types of relationships and where abuse and unhealthy relationships can come in. We have Emily. There's a little sound clip, and this talks through, we'll say, her relationship with her partner, Nolene, gives them the opportunity to hear, you know, like red flags, I suppose, that may come up within a relationship. It's another way to sort of reinforce some of the topics that come up in the session. So there is a lot, as I said, you know, it's very important as well that to bear in mind throughout these, the issue of being triggered, like somebody can become very upset, they can start getting, you know, worried about looking at some of the content and what it can bring up for them. It's also important that they know who they can talk to about this, as well as being able to talk to yourself, we'll say, during the program with them, and to give them information on services that are there. So that's also within this. There's the opportunity to learn more in each, I think most of the sessions. So we'll say there would be YouTube videos, the 2into2u website, and there's other resources that they can have a look at that will go back over the topics that were covered. So we'll say that's basically the first three, as I say, are kind of the intro to the session: healthy relationship versus unhealthy relationship. So in session 4, we start to go into, we'll say, some of what was brought up through the research and through the consultation with young people. One of the things in particular that's a big topic in general is consent, and we'll say sexual consent in particular. So again, we have our two little characters here who just go through what is meant by consent when it comes to sex. Again, listening to this on their own or with the person they're doing the program, so that they get the basis of where we're coming from in this session. Goes on to explain it's important, you know, that people understand what the legalities around consent are in the country and what the legal age of consent is. There's also very good practical ways of looking at the topic, we'll say, in terms of how do you actually get consent. You know, it's not just well, they were there with me, so they must have wanted something to happen. You know, that it's important that there's no blurred lines, that people are very clear, and that you need to have, you know, a conversation with your partner, and they give actual examples of how you could ask. So again, there's a lot in the session, as you can see: how to get consent, reading body language, again, practical ways, you know, how to feel about saying no to sex, not wanting to feel that you're a spoil sport, but also, you know, it's about standing up for yourself, putting your own needs first, not being a pushover, not letting other people tell you what to do. This can be quite, this could be quite I suppose, a triggering piece to do for a lot of young people. And the next part looks at that, we'll say, in terms of their life experience. You know, there is the possibility that they've been in situations where they haven't been able to say no to experiences. There may have been sexual abuse. So again, these slides go through, you know, you may not have been able to say no in the past, so it's difficult to say no now. And it gives actual examples of why, you know, this has an impact on how they are now in sexual relationships. Again, we're going on to look at porn within that session, the use of porn. I suppose one of the important things to point out here for them really is, you know, porn versus reality. And these flip cards are very good again in that. So, you know, they look at consent is rarely spoken about or mentioned in porn. If you click on it, it gives the real life, you know, it's very important to get consent. So again, goes down through, we'll say, exploring sex. It's important, like we said, being non-judgmental, being very open. Sex is a natural thing for the young person, you know, to be thinking about. Having said that, not everybody that's doing the program will be at that stage. You know, again, if you're a younger person, or even if, you know, they're an older teenager and that's not where they're at right now, that's fine. You know, there's bits and pieces that you don't have to cover with them, or there's parts that you might want to go through so that they're informed for when they do get to the point in a relationship where that's something that they're thinking about. So again, you know, getting to know your body, communicate with your partner, speak to your key worker, trusted person. There's all little examples of how to explore sex in a healthy way. Again, I suppose it's important maybe to look at problems with underage sex. So if a young person, you know, things that can come up, again, in a non-judgmental way, these all give like little examples, information on what can happen. You know, young people who have sex under 17 are less likely to use contraception. So I suppose it's just points that you might need to highlight to them. Very good website before you decide to look at as well. So a lot in session 4, but it's worth going through the bits that are relevant to your young person. So session 5 is starting to look at boundaries. Again, there's bits here that, Jess, if you want to jump in at any point when I'm going through 5 and 6, feel free. There's loads, we'll say very important, really good information in session 5 and 6. By now you would have been familiar with the layout of the session. So looking at what the topic is, looking at boundaries, what is a boundary? The little video will explain in practical terms what a boundary should look like. The stop and think, we'll say again, it goes through not set in stone and how they may change over time. But they go through like physical, emotional, relationship, mental, financial, sexual boundaries. And then it does go through each of them, we'll say, in little breakdowns, like what's a physical boundary. I don't want her touching me unless she puts her arm around me or touches my arm. So they're very good. You know, they explain it, we'll say, to the young person in a very practical way. You know, a mental boundary, what does that look like? So again, you have your stop and think. Does it cross boundaries? And this one goes through very practical examples, you know, that may come up. Taking a gift from an older adult, I don't know very well. Going off with friends in the car where the driver is drunk. So it's giving them the opportunity to think through situations and scenarios and see how they might respond. So here again, you'll be looking at the challenges, having been in care of, you know, having relationship and boundaries that are healthy for you. And again, we're back to our little flip cards. So I didn't feel that I had any choices on what was happening to me. I don't always recognize abusive relationships and don't know how to end them. So these are things again that we would have come across in some of the interviews as well as the research. So looking at our rights, reminding people, I suppose, that, you know, they have rights in relationships, and we have the right to say yes and no. We have the right to say how we feel about something maybe that isn't always how the young person would feel, especially when, I suppose, they feel like they have a lot of people, you know, telling them what to do with their lives. And, you know, from a very practical point of view, having to keep the young person safe, but not feeling they have the right then to speak up can come up quite a bit. Important as well to point out, you know, self-care, and it breaks down all the different types, we'll say, and gives little examples of how to look after yourself, and the relevance, I suppose, of being self-aware and, you know, reading your body and how you're feeling, and you know, not being afraid to recognize and respond to that then. So here is another example of to find out more. So it gives websites, we'll say, that you can go through, and apps that you can use for the self-care. So is there anything you want to say on session 5 there, Jess?
No, not really. I suppose just a bit about boundaries is that a lot of the young people didn't really recognize boundaries, didn't know what they were, and because they'd had a care experience, going back to what I said earlier, didn't feel they had choice. You know, that choice was a big issue for them. They had choosing to end a relationship, choosing what they wanted. So choice was a very big thing. So that there might be quite a bit of work in terms of getting young people to, you know, recognize those boundaries, I would say, and it could be quite triggering as well.
Yes.
In fact, you know, probably all the program is, but that could be quite triggering for somebody to work through those issues around boundaries. So yeah, that's fine.
So the final session in the program, session 6, looking at emotions. Again, it's quite a comprehensive session, and we'll say starting, I suppose the important thing is, you know, managing emotions. There's some very key parts here for the program in general.
Yeah.
Jess, if you want to
Yeah, do
explain
you want to go
around.
into the window of tolerance there? So
Yeah,
I suppose what we were coming from here was from I suppose a trauma perspective, is that so maybe young people might not recognize or not be able to regulate their emotions. And so what we wanted to do was to put in some kind of, I suppose, just helpful piece for them around, you know, if I lose it with a teacher, you know, what's happened. So there is a clip in here about, I think it's Niall loses it with a teacher. And what we were trying to do, I suppose, was really to just give somebody a bit of a help around that, around the window of tolerance, that look, I can get triggered outside my window of tolerance, which sends me up into hyperarousal. If you were to go into the technicality of it, I could be up on fight flight mode. So it was really just giving, I think, young people some kind of a bit of a toolkit. Look, that this could be a leftover piece for me, and that I can get triggered outside my window of tolerance, and an understanding around it. So that was, I suppose, the reason to put in. So we just go on there for another bit. So again, it was around triggers, you know, recognizing what are my triggers, and everybody's triggers are individual to themselves. So we put in things like, you know, Christmas can be a trigger for people, certain music can be a trigger, being asked about being in care. So again, I suppose even the mention of the word social worker can be a trigger for somebody. So it's again, just, I suppose, bringing awareness to the young person that these are just triggers. So they're just triggers. And once we identify those triggers, then it's easier for us to manage them, you know. So if you go on another bit, I'd say. So yeah, and then again, there's some tips then about how to cope, you know, in life. Just again, as Sandra said, there's flip cards there, and they're very easy kind of to go through. Just even go through one of them. Yeah, so I suppose again, it was, if you look at this one, it was based on the research that we had done, is that, you know, we can be kind of hardwired for negativity when we've had a lot of trauma experiences. So just because something bad happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. So it's again working with the young person maybe around challenging their thought processes, you know, around that. So that's helpful, I suppose, for a young person. But what we were trying to do was give them some helpful ways of looking after themselves, knowing in the background that they might have this trauma legacy piece. So I'm going to go on. And again, trust, as you can see, came up very much in the research, not trusting people, being self-reliant. Maybe if social workers change, that, you know, they had built a relationship and then they have to build a relationship with somebody else. So again, it's recognizing that, knowing that this might be an issue for somebody, but also, I suppose, just working through that it is important for them to seek help, and to seek help from somebody who can trust them, because that might be something they might go back to somebody who can't help them. And then shame is a huge part of the research from the young people, again, that the stigma of being in care, feeling that in some way that they're not good enough. You can see it there on the original slides I had about, you know, something that would up us, something that would make us feel like we've come through a lot. So it was important, I think, when we were looking at that, was just to make people aware that it's not your fault, you know, it's what's happened to you. And this clip was from a young girl, actually, who talked about her experiences and how it left her feeling. So it is her words, actually, about not feeling good enough. So yeah, if we keep going on. So there's a lot in this one, actually. So again, it's starting to think about with the young person, you know, if you can start to kind of pull that out of them a little bit. Is there things you feel ashamed about? And actually, it's not their fault that they're in care. And again, I suppose it's just this could be slow enough work, you know, there could be quite a lot of triggers in this one. So again, I would reiterate the bit about going slowly through this bit. Here it seems quite pippy and short, but with a young person who would have experienced care and who would have had a lot of shame, this would be kind of, you'd be going through this slowly with them. And again, what we wanted to do, I suppose, was getting people to recognize that you've actually a survivor. You've actually a lot of coping strategies. You're quite a resilient person. They may not see that. So again, what's always coming to my mind here is the young person who said to me, we needed somebody to tell us that we've actually come through this, and we're good people. So that was really what we were thinking about when we were designing this last module. And again, you know, I was trying to get positive things, get them to think about positive things about themselves. So I think, is that the end, maybe? So you can see there's a couple of exercises.
yeah, we'll say then it just basically again goes back to the find out more. So you
Yeah.
know, there's a bit more to look into if somebody wants to delve more into the topics, we'll say. And that's basically the end of that session and the end of the program. There you go.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jess, and thank you, Sandra. That was really comprehensive, and I think it gives us all a really good insight into the layout, the feel, the color, the mixture of graphics, the mixture of animation. We are looking at young people of a certain age, so it does have to be appealing. It doesn't have to be too text heavy. And that was one of the major feedback pieces that we got as well, as they didn't want to be going through like it was school. So it was very important that the design didn't look like something that they were doing in school. And I think the lovely interactivity kind of breaks that down. They were in individual links, whereas when you're delivering it with your young person, you'll be doing it on a platform. So all the 6 modules have been uploaded on a platform. So if anybody has done TUSLA training or HSE training before, so child protection training or whatever, you would log in, you have your own account on HSE Land, and you log in and you find your course and you register for your course. So this is quite similar, but it's called an LMS platform. So the people who designed the course for us, they have designed a specific platform just for this course. So what I thought would be really useful is to actually show you, now that you've seen the content, is to show you where you're going to get access to the content, how you can register for the course, how you can register the young person for the course, and just the practical pieces. Now, myself and David Studer, who is the Limerick CIPSI coordinator, we are registered as administrators on the platform. So we are there to set you up, to register you as managers, to set you up and to support you through that technical process of getting you started. So you're not on your own with it. Myself and David are there. So I just think it would be really useful now at this stage, and hopefully the technology won't let me down, is to actually show you just a very small clip about the platform itself, how you log into the platform, and how you can navigate it to get your young person set up as a learner on the platform so that you can start the course. So I just want to check first, can people see this screen in front of me? It should say HD. Yeah, okay, that's great. So if you just bear with me now, and we will listen to a person just talking through the setup and the login system.
Hi everyone, I'm going to log in as a manager to allow you to view and understand the various permissions a manager would have while they log in to the Healthy Relationships portal. Here is my view of the dashboard upon logging in. To the left, I have 4 options to work off: dashboards, enrolments, users, and reports. The dashboard section will give me an overview of my learning as a manager. So here you can see I've been enrolled onto 2 courses and I haven't completed any. And I can access any of the courses whenever I wish. I can start them. Next is enrolments. From here, I have access to the courses which are available to my group of learners. Here I can select the course or courses and users or groups I wish to enroll.
Sorry now, I hope glitch on my side here. My internet is a little bit unstable. We'll just move her back a little bit and hopefully she'll unfreeze for me. Okay.
Or groups I wish to enroll. So for this example, I'm going to click on session 1. I can select this user, and if I wish, I can click enroll down on the bottom right to enroll that user onto the course. If I've got many users I wish to enroll onto the course, it might be easier to switch to groups, upload the users into a group, and then just enroll the group onto the course. The next section is users. By clicking here, I can view the user details in my group.
I think
And
it's
their
important just
activities.
to explain at this juncture that when she's referring to users, they are our learners. So the users are the young people who will be doing the course with you. So just on the dashboard, they're called users, but they're really learners. And yourselves delivering the course are referred to in the system as managers. So your manager is here and she's going to talk you through how to set up a new user, which is the young person.
So here you can see this user's basic information, the date they were created, their last sign-in date, and by clicking here, their recent activities on the portal. Over on the right-hand side, if I click on Actions, I've got the option to create a user or invite a user to the portal. If I select Create, I need to add in their various details, first name, last name, email address. The portal will automatically send an invite to that user, and that user will automatically become a member of my group, which is Group A. This group has been set up in the back end of the portal by the administrators. I can also choose to invite a user to the portal. And all I need here is the user's email address. If I've got several users that I wish to invite, I just need to add in the various different email addresses separated by a comma. And as you can see, that one email or several emails will all be added to my group, which is Group A. And I just click Invite. Pending users are those who have yet to accept my invite. So as you can see, there's nobody here at the moment, but if there were email addresses or users' details here, that's a good indication for you as a manager to maybe check up with the person to find out if they have received the email. Maybe you need to resend it. Maybe the email address is incorrect. But it gives you another option to resend the invite to the portal. The report section, then, by clicking here, I can pull reports for my users. Here I can view completion statuses for modules, the dates the modules were completed, the dates they were started, and you know, if they're in progress, percentage-wise, 10, 20, 30%, and if the user has passed or failed. Course modules report.
Sorry, I'm on mute there. I think it's just important just to stress that there is no pass or fail. So obviously this learning management tool is set up for a multitude of courses. So it could be health and safety course, or, you know, it could be a healthcare course or a language course where it's actually academic. Obviously ours is not academic. So there is no pass or fail, but that is an option that is just built into the program already. So I just think that's really important for the young people to figure out, even though they feel like they're doing a course, they're not graded on it, and there is no pass or fail requirements.
Course modules report will give you the most details. So in order to pull a report, you click on course modules. You select the date range So we'd say for the 1st of October to the 12th of October, you select the course or courses that you wish to pull a report on. And you've got options down at the bottom. You can run the report, export to Excel, or export to PDF. Export to Excel, you will be able to filter the report into various different sections, depending on what you want to find out about your group of users. And bear in mind that you can only pull a report based on users within your groups. Okay. So that is the view, permissions and access of a manager. I hope you found that useful. If you've got any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that is just a sort of a brief demo as to what the actual portal looks like. Everybody who's delivering it is referred to as a manager, and the young people are referred to it as a user. So what will happen is myself and David Studer, my colleague in Limerick, we are administrators. So we will set everybody up as managers. So you will get an email to your email address to accept the invite. Once you accept that invite, then you can log in. Then you'll go into the system, you'll put in your password, you'll set yourself up with a password, then you can get into the system. You will then go on, and just like what Helena on the video showed you, is you will then individually set up your users. Now, I think it's really important for people to know that managers can only see users in their own group. Have young people in private residential, we've got young people in foster care doing this. You cannot see those young people's email addresses. You do not know that they're actually on this portal. The only people that you can see that's on the portal are the young people that you have registered. So from a GDPR perspective, I think that's really important. The only people that have overarching view of everybody are administrators, and that's myself and David Studer. And we just need to have that access for information for the evaluation process. One thing I think that's important is that your users or your young people are going to need email addresses. Now, we presume that most young people, we just kind of presume, oh, everybody has an email address nowadays because they needed to set up their social media, their Snapchat, their Instagram, or whatever. But we hear that a lot of young people, they set up a proxy email address just to get onto the social media platforms, and they never use it again, so they don't even remember. So I think it's really important that you go to the young person and make sure that they have a live email address that they can access so that they can accept the invite. Once you've accepted the invite, we will then enroll you. So we will enroll the managers onto the courses, so you'll be enrolled. It's up to you then to register your users, your young people, and then you go in and then you can enroll the young person onto the course, just like what she showed you. If there's anybody having any technical difficulties, myself and David can step in. We can step in, we can do the enrollments, we can do the registering. But we just wanted to give that a little bit of autonomy to the managers to sort of do this themselves. In advance of you starting off this program, there's a few other little things that I think are really important to highlight. This is a pilot program. So we do have an evaluator commissioned called Sue Redmond. So Sue has designed pre and post questionnaires, which is really, really important for this process of the program. So it's in Google Forms. It's just a link. It's very simple that we would like yourselves as facilitators and your young person to answer a couple of questions before you do this intervention. So we want to sort of, and they're really attitudinal questions. They're just tick the boxes. They're very, very basic. So it's, how do you feel about going into the program? How do you feel about healthy relationships? How do you feel about delivering the program? And they're all just done on a scale. After you finish the program, we will ask you another set of questions then after, so for yourself and the young person. So I think that's really important because it helps us with the evaluation. So before you start delivering your program, you have to have completed the pre-evaluation survey, yourself and the young person. We also have a little fact sheet for the young person. So if you're going back into work now tomorrow and you have a client in mind that you say, look, there's this great thing, I think it would be really suitable for you, we have a very short and very simple one-page fact sheet that you can give to the young person. As part of the pilot, every young person that engages with the program will be given a €50 all-for-one voucher. We feel that this is really, really important because they are participating in an evaluation as well. So they are giving their time to assess and reflect on this, which is helping us learn. So in recognition for that, all the young people only part of the pilot program will all be receiving an all-for-one €50 voucher upon completion, or when it comes to the point that they say we can't complete because we just don't feel we're able to, they won't be discriminated in that regard. So I think that there's sort of the content and the technical elements of the program. Obviously, it's important that you've got a laptop or a desktop that you're going to be, if you're going to be doing it face to face. If you're working in a residential section, you know, you might be in the same unit, so you could be sitting down in a room doing it face to face. Or if you're going to be doing it remotely, say if you've got a young person in foster care and there's a distance, a time travel thing, that it's going to be hard for you to get together, you might be doing it remotely. So it's important that you've got good internet connection, and obviously you've got laptops. So the next steps really is after you have watched this video and you've done your workshop, there's a few important steps to take. It's that you make contact with myself, Sinead Colopy, sinead.colopy@tusla.ie, or David Studer. So it's david.studer, S-T-U-D-E-R, @tusla.ie, and Colopy is C-O-L-L-O-P-Y. So the important thing is to come back to us, confirm your email address that you are going to be using, because some people are using work emails, some people are using private emails, so that we can get you set up as managers. We will then give you your facilitator's guide. So there is a guidebook to help you, that will help you go through each of the modules as well. So that's a very important resource. We will send you out the little video to remind you how to register in case you forget. And we'll also send you out your pre-survey, your evaluation pre-survey link that you will complete in advance. We are hoping that everybody in the pilot will have started before Christmas. As we say, you might take a module a week. It might take you, the introduction module is very short. You probably will get that done really, really quickly, and you can start session 2 straight away. And then as you go further along, you can see they get more complex and more heavy. So, you know, maybe module 5 might take you 2 weeks, could take you 3 weeks. It's at whatever speed you need to go. There is no date that you have to have it finished by, but we really need to have everybody up and running and started before Christmas 2021. So I feel that I think that's everything that we've covered in this morning's workshop. I would just like to say heart into this, really. It's been bigger than just a commissioned piece of work. It's really been a labor of love for all of us, and we are all 100% committed to this program and to improving the outcomes for our young people in care, who are a very important sector of our community. So if there are any queries afterwards, please reach out to myself, as I say, Sinead Colopy, at sinead.colopy@tusla.ie, or david.studer@tusla.ie. So thank you very much for your attendance. If there's no Q&A or any specific questions, we'll call it a morning. And I just want to say thank you and best of luck in delivering the Healthy Relationships program.